Hello, my name is Osha. I'd like to talk about US history. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about Dr. Martin Luther King's famous letter from Birmingham Jail, which he penned on April 16, 1963. Um, so, Dr. Martin Luther King was arrested along with other um, marchers on April 12, 1963, uh, because they chose to break um, an injunction in Birmingham. They had planned to engage in a um, peaceful, nonviolent march as a protest against segregated businesses and restaurants in Birmingham. However, a judge had issued an injunction a few days before, I think on April 10, 1963, barring, such activities. Um, but Dr. King and, Reverend Ralph Abernathy, they felt it was an unjust and unconstitutional limit on their First Amendment rights, so they decided to march anywhere, where as an deliberate act of civil disobedience. So they got arrested. When Dr. King was arrested and sent to Birmingham Jail, where he ended up staying for about 8 days in solitary confinement, he penned his letter from Birmingham Jail uh, in response to criticisms from white Alabama clergymen who called the his protest as unwise and untimely. One of the things, an iconic phrase which he wrote was that injustice anywhere uh, is a threat to justice everywhere. And the reason I wanted to point this out is because someone who had said she was my mentor, that's the Auditor General of the Navy, Donjette L. Gilmore. She's incidentally from Alabama as well. And, for about a year, we would talk virtually every day for hours, on her private cell phone, on my private cell phone. She called herself my mentor. She brought me gifts. She seemed like she was empathizing with me, brought me a desk for me to be able to study, brought me two marble stools, brought me, it gave me a portrait, right? So brought me a chair for me to, because my apartment was bare. She delivered these things to me personally in my home. This was the Auditor General of the Navy, right? So, um, and she liked to talk a lot. She liked to reference about how her grandparents marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. I remember when I introduced her to um, my my boss, who was the CEO of a federal credit union I was working at the time. I was, waiting to, transition to the auditor role in the Department of the Navy, because I was an auditor in the Department of the Navy Naval Audit Service, where she was the head of the agency. So I had her talk to um, my my boss, who was the CEO of the credit union that I was working for, and I also had to talk to the Jide Wariri, who is supposed to have instigated all the false travails, the false charges that I'm, still suffering from. And a remark she consistently made was about how her grandparents had marched with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And so you see, she used the name of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and civil rights marchers, um, you know, to sort of associate herself with liberation struggle, or with fidelity to civil rights and justice, when she apparently was head of an agency that perpetrated the greatest injustice that I've ever suffered. I've never suffered what I experienced before in naval audit service. She knew that people were harassing me. What is interesting is the people who actually were harassing me in that naval audit service, because I worked in a team of women. They were all black women. I was the only black male. They were all black women. Nefertari McBride was a black. She's a black woman. Ruth Pollard, black. Felicia A. Allen, black woman. Marquita Scott, black woman. I thought I'd have a different experience because I, mainly worked with um, my professional life in the U.S. I've mainly worked with black white people, but I was this experience was a nightmare, and these people were always trying to appropriate Dr. King. Dr. King stood for justice, right? He said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." These were black people who like to postulate that, oh, the civil rights, but they were uh, assembling, gathering, condemning, an innocent man, a black man like them, right? I'm a black person. I'm a black person like them. They're females, they're black women. And something, that I came to realize, um, something I've come to realize since I started watching, paying attention to police brutality against black people. And when I was wrongfully detained, right, in jail, I would ask and investigate. I'd ask people what led them to jail. Consistently, black people were the majority of the people in Montgomery County. Consistently, it was black people that got them in jail, right? And because of my experience, I've also come to learn, we might say, well, because they're doing terrible people to black people, they should be in jail. Not everybody that's in jail. From my experience, I've come to learn sometimes black people are just framed. From my experience, I lived alone. Nobody could have said there was no phantom. Nobody could have said that. Well, I was attacking anybody in my home. I lived alone. I didn't attack anybody. I didn't. I wasn't in a fight with anybody. The police ostensibly came to my home and harassed me and assaulted me, leaving me with permanent and severe injuries, right? And defaming me to add insult to injury by filing false charges against me, right? And having me locked up. Been detained for over 2 years. I was locked up for 15 months without a trial, right? On false charges. So I came to see the injustices, abuses many black people experience. And it's normally from, other black people like them. George Floyd, I remember seeing the video of the George Floyd uh, murder. And something nobody talks about, we all talk about the abuse, how, um, the Derek Chauvin, the murderer cop, right, that put his knee to his neck and killed him, and there were others who were there, they didn't stop it, right? They got time as well, the other cops. But what about the guy who made the false police call? The black boy. He made a false police call. It was a black kid, the cashier. The story went, the person who accused him of uh, using a fake dollar bill, $20 bill or whatever the denomination was. It was a black boy. That guy may have just been angry and just looked at this black guy and wanted to lash out, punish this black man, right? This is something that's, it's prevalent within the black American community. I am being charged, I was harassed and abused by black people in the team I worked for. I reported someone just like the head of the agency asked me to. He retaliated, and then apparently they orchestrated somehow how to get my in-law, an in-law that I'd lived with him before. I'd never, you know, he'd never called the cops on me. They suborned this old man, right? They suborned him to go and file a perjured, fabricated emergency evaluation petition. And I know it was the Navy that got him to do this. One of the ways I know that it was the Navy is because just a few days before this incident happened, first of all, everything he wrote in the emergency evaluation petition was a fabrication. They never gave me this emergency evaluation petition. My family never got it. He fabricated stuff, complete fabrication. A few days before the incident, before he assaulted me, because he came with my neighbor to assault me on May 14th, the neighbor he came to assault me with in the emergency evaluation petition, he now fabricates that, well, the police said I was in a fight with my neighbors, that the police called him and said they needed his assistant because he was concerned about the safety of my neighbors. Only fabrication. And I have a witness, my friend who spoke with the police on May 14, because after Iwariri had assaulted me, I called the police because my friend said, call the police. Jide Iwariri and my neighbor, another black, whatever, they came, assaulted me, trying to grab me. Jide Iwariri, like an African, a bully African, trying to grab me, saying he wants to take me to go and see a psychiatrist because I dropped the phone on him, apparently. Or maybe I guess it's just what the Navy had told him to do. I don't know. He's told so many lies. And I haven't been able to meet him in court, right? And Montgomery County doesn't want him to produce him in court to state when I ever told him I was going to shoot him, because Montgomery County Police, another, written in a statement written by a black police officer, wrote that I threatened to shoot Jide Iwariri twice. Jide Iwariri has denied this. Of course, I never said that. I've never threatened to shoot anybody in my life. I don't own a gun. I don't own a gun. I've never owned guns in my life. I don't carry guns. I've never belonged in a gang. Jide Iwariri denied this. So it was a black police officer who wrote this fabricated statement. And then they came without an arrest warrant, without giving me notice, falsely imprisoned me in my home, shot me, left me with permanent injuries. Then, to add insult to injury, tear gassed my home with the chemicals, removed me naked, bloodied, and handcuffed me and dumped me in suburban hospital, recording me, violating my constitutional rights. Now, let me have a trial. Then after that, to add insult to injury again, they locked me up in jail for 15 months. Locked me up for about 15 months, placed me under house arrest for a year. The judge said he wanted me to lose my job at the Pentagon. So these are the abuses, the injustice. And I'm an American citizen. What has bothered me is the role of black people in all of this. The judge who approved the fabricated and perjured emergency evaluation is a black woman, Judge Bibi Perry. I wrote her after I came out, let her know that this is a fabrication. I've asked her vacate this because my family went to court in Nigeria saying Jide Iwariri fabricated the emergency evaluation petition. One, he's not my uncle, right? I come from a wealthy family, a significant, respectable family. Jide Iwariri comes from the gutter in Lagos, right? I don't know him. There's no consanguinity between us, right? And he has no authority to do that. My family has a right of privacy. If anything is wrong with me, my family has a right to know. I've been in America since 1999. They sent me for my education, right? An independent person, so I chose to stay. If there's anything wrong, the people who raised me, who paid for me, who I've never lived on welfare in my life, they have a right for me for to have me back home. Do you know why I didn't contribute a penny to my education? He's never written me a reference to get a job. He's never been involved. But here he was. All of a sudden, a few days before he assaulted me, and then the police assaulted me as well, based on his perjured emergency evaluation petition. Um, there were he had been calling me. He called me, asked me, tried to uh, try to uh, in, he was imploring me to withdraw my EEOC petition and other petitions against uh, uh, people, rogue actors in the Navy. That's my people who committed misconduct in the Navy. And I was stunned because that has nothing to do with him, right? And I was surprised. I'm like, why is he calling me, making these requests? He said, well, that they know very important people and they can harm me. That was what he said. He said they can harm me. He said they play hardball. It was just, and I was just, I'm a polite person. I'm normally, because he's an elderly man, I'm normally polite and courteous to elderly people. So even though he was intrusive or was violating boundaries I'd set for him, I laughed it off. I shrugged it off when he was saying, oh, he even raised his voice at me, saying, oh, I don't have any. What did he say? He said, I don't know any important people. I don't have a rich uncle that can help me, or blah, blah, blah. But, I've never gone to GDY for help. So I think he was delusional, thinking he's going to be able to help me. I'm going to look to him to help me to do anything. That was my constitutional right to petition the government, right? That's in the First Amendment. Just like, Reverend Martin Luther King, when they had tried to, the white clergymen, right, were being sanctimonious, and the people were trying to coerce him, saying, well, that they shouldn't march, they shouldn't do the protest in Birmingham. It was peaceful, it was non-violent, and when there was the injunction to prevent them, he insisted, and that was why he wrote that letter from Birmingham Jail, right? He wrote it on April 16, 1963. He wrote it saying, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And he insisted that, the injunction was an unjust and unconstitutional limit on their First Amendment rights. Incidentally, my right to petition is within my First Amendment rights. Remember, I talked about the gag rule, and our sixth president, John Quincy Adams, who became a congressman later on, he insisted that the gag rule, which was intended, um, it was imposed the uh, by congressmen, legislators from the South, in order to prevent, to table any discussion regarding slavery, right? John Quincy Adams insisted that it was a violation of the First Amendment right to petition, right? We have a right to protest, all right, to peacefully protest and petition the government for a redress of our grievances. So I filed my petitions uh, against rogue actors in the Navy who uh, harassed me, and against those ones who committed fraud and misconduct, to safeguard our institutions. It's up to a judge to decide if what I'm writing has merit or not. Not for GDY to come and obstruct justice by going to file a false emergency evaluation petition, and then the police then coming, right, to come and raid me, lock me up, you know. Now, what is also astonishing me uh, is the role of Montgomery County Police. Um, Montgomery County Police, apart from assaulting me, committing false imprisonment, they violated me. They filed a fabricated, false charge statement, right? Body cam shows what they wrote was a fabrication. They violated my constitutional rights. They had no arrest warrant. After that, the state attorney, who should never, when they reviewed the evidence, they filed false charges against me and using it as blackmail and an extortion, right? For blackmail and extortion in order to defame me, to discredit me, and to prevent a prosecution of the misconduct of the police and to prevent uh, lawsuits. That's not why um, prosecutors are supposed to file um, cases against citizens or anybody. Prosecutors should have probable cause that a crime was committed by the person, by the act, by the defendant. They should have uh, evidence sufficient to be able to convict the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt, right? You can only get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's in the interest of justice to file those charges, to prosecute. A man, a law abiding, innocent man, middle aged man, never been to jail, never committed a crime, not committing any crime, works for the federal government. How is it in the interest of justice to file false charges? Because all the charges are false. The public defender I had has looked at the case. It's almost this is 3 years now. Looked at the case and they've all been saying, "Hey, we don't see any crime. We don't see any crime this man committed. The only crime that was committed was against me. So I was the victim of a crime." But the Montgomery County maliciously filed charges against me, holding me. They've held my life for 3 years. It took me 3 years to graduate, to go to law school, matriculate and graduate. It's 3 years. You can earn 3 master's degrees in 3 years, right? There are businesses that they can take off in 3 years. So for 3 years, all my certifications, when I was working as an auditor, because my job was to just take courses, go and continue taking courses. I was registered for courses. I finished, I had done all the training for 3 years. I'd completed my 3 years in advance because this was 2023. This happened in 2023. I'd completed training for 2023, 2024, 2025, way in advance. So you see, I was using my time because I was planning on using my vacation well. I hadn't taken a vacation, never taken a vacation. I never used my vacation time throughout my time in America. I planned how I was going to go home. Let my mom, my family celebrate that, wow, that what I went to do in America, I achieved it. I achieved far more. Let my family experience the joy. All the places I graduated from in America, my parents weren't there. They didn't get the opportunity to be there. Nobody in my family, right? At least my parents weren't there. I graduated from Alabama, graduated from Columbia University in New York, graduated from George Washington University Law School. My parents weren't there, right? Right. My family wasn't there. And now I had a chance to be able to go home. I went to school at Oxford University in England, went to school at Bocconi University in Italy. Now I had a chance to be able to go home and celebrate with my family. But the wicked, racist prosecutor, state attorney, John McCarthy, has filed false charges against me, holding me, trying to coerce me. And then the crooked judge, Judge James Bonifant, has been postponing the case. He's locked me up, did two incompetency. Um, he ordered false uh, incompetency orders, right? Made false incompetency orders to wrongfully detain me, to send me, to force an evaluation to try and coerce false treatments. Nostrums, fortunately, those psychiatrists were good. They said, no, this man has no mental illness. They refused to participate in the racket that Judge Bonifant has going on in Maryland, right? They have a racket in Montgomery County, Maryland, and I just wanted to really talk about how the letter to the letter from Birmingham Jail by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April 16, 1963 inspires me, right? It inspires me. I'm going to continue this video. I want to try and keep this short. And so, again, a reminder that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said in his letter from Birmingham Jail, penned April 16, 1963. My name is Osha, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.